Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Greenham Trust Community Forum here on Zoom. We're delighted to have you all on board this morning. And I have to say, just looking at the number at the bottom of the screen, 131 people at the moment online with us. We're humbled by the number of people who've got engaged with us this morning. Just absolutely amazing that so many people have joined us. I'd like to say before we get going that this event is being recorded, so I hope everybody is comfortable with that. The reasons for recording it is that, of course, there might be people who will miss it and they might want to look at it later. And of course, if you want to, you can share with colleagues going forward as well. We were keen to do this event, so keen to do this event because we haven't seen so many of you for so long. And we haven't seen so many of you with long hair for so long either. And I'm sure many of you will be getting that fixed over the coming days as things start to open up and barbers and hairdressers start to open as well. It's been tough, of course, over the last 4 months of lockdown, 3 to 4 months of lockdown, and it's going to remain tough very much in the fundraising arena. We know that. So we thought this was a very good opportunity to get together this morning to share our views and to give you our tips on fundraising in this COVID-19 and the post-COVID-19 era. And also to tell you about a very special trust initiative that's running at the end of July. But the key objective this morning is very much to help you with our fundraising. Just a brief overview of the agenda. We're going to have Jazz Galley from the Trust talking about grant funding. We're going to have Julian May also talking about collaborative funding. We're going to have some top tips from Misha Wallish, who's going to be talking about how to drive your giving through social media. Then we're delighted to have been joined by two excellent guest speakers this morning, Madonna from Dingley's Promise and Samantha Harper from the West Berkshire Therapy Centre. Delighted to have both of you on board and thank you for joining us. And then last but not least, we'll finish off with Jill Owen from the Trust talking about the Trust Double Match Day at the end of July. And we'll also then have a Q&A session at the end of the day. We hope to be wrapped up in about an hour. We might overrun if there are lots and lots of questions. As I said, it's been tough. It's been a tough old time, but it's also been an amazing time. The charity sector and the general public have stepped up in such an amazing way across the whole of the UK, but we've seen that manifest itself so clearly here in West Berkshire. And, you know, whether it was people volunteering, and at one time, right in the early stages of lockdown, there were about 15 volunteering offers for every volunteering need. Just amazing. People were getting involved, looking after their next door neighbours, doing whatever they could. We became a more caring society. And people have also donated, the general public, to the coronavirus appeal that the Trust set up in week 1 of lockdown as well. And now that now sits, and we've never done this before, an appeal on the Good Exchange. That now sits at £424,000. And just an amazing thing we've been able to realise. And we'd like to say to all of you a big thank you, whether you've been volunteering, whether you've been just helping your neighbours, whether you've been donating and getting involved in a charity and making a difference and helping those in need during this period of time. Thank you from all of us. The Trust team, of course, we've been working remotely since the beginning of lockdown. So we've all been working from home and still are, of course. 1 or 2 of us are going into the office, but fundamentally we're working remotely, as I know many of you here this morning will be doing as well. And we've been focused, of course, as you can imagine, on looking after our tenants. We've got that sort of commercial side to the organisation as well. And of course, the tenants are critical because they produce the income of which generate the surpluses which flow into the community and the charitable sector here in our local area. But also we've been working with many of you in our local charities and volunteer organisations in both North Hampshire and West Berkshire during this period. Of course, this is not over. Lots of reports in the media, of course, we're seeing, you know, lockdown is easing, but it's not over. We clearly face what I see a very uncertain future going forward. A lot of uncertainty in terms of what's going on. Daily news reports in terms of the easing of lockdown. We're seeing other places like Leicester and others potentially now we hear this morning going back into lockdown again. We've been very fortunate to a degree in West Berkshire, and our COVID-19 sort of exposure has been very limited and remains as such. Long hope that may continue. But we've seen that, you know, at the end of the day, as individuals, as organisations, we will survive. That's what humans do. We adapt to survive. We've all changed the way we work. You know, we're all working from home at the Trust. We've all changed the way we live in terms of the way we shop, the way we sort of go out, the way we interact with friends and colleagues. And we've all adopted technology. And that's been probably the most amazing thing for me, evidenced by this morning as I look at the bottom of the screen, you know, 143 people online. Who'd have thought 4 months ago we'd have so many people engaging with us, let alone a year ago? It would never happen. I hadn't even heard of Zoom really until the beginning of lockdown. It's just been amazing. And I think, you know, talking to many charities, they've adopted technology as well. Many organizations, and we'll hear from Samantha and Aoife later, but they've done a lot of online content. What they're all telling me, of course, that will continue. They'll obviously get involved back in the physical environment with whoever they support as we go through the easing of lockdown, hopefully during the course of the show, but they'll also take the best of what they've learned from technology and use that going forward. At the Trust, we've been having daily grant calls, of course, and have made decisions on critical funding of COVID-19 related applications in 24 hours. And those continue and have continued now for the last few months. We've supported over 60 organisations with individual grants, and that's just over £300,000 of funding been provided over that period of time. But also we've collaborated with many other organisations as well to help those in need in our area. We collaborated very early on, of course, with West Berkshire Council and the Volunteer Centre in West Berkshire to create the Community Support Hub here in West Berkshire. And it's one of the first that was set up in the UK, and we should all be very proud of that. And I'd like to say thank you to all those involved at West Berkshire Council and the Volunteer Centre West Berkshire, plus all the charities that have engaged in that. You know where you are, but thank you so much for what you've been doing over the last few months to make that all happen. We also, through the fund, we did something we hadn't really done before. We got the general public involved in the Coronavirus Appeal Fund and the Good Exchange, but also we collaborated with many other funders, to Sovereign Housing, to Englefield Charitable Trust, to Peter Baker Foundation, the Miss Lawrence Trust, Greenham Parish Council, the GJ Ward Charitable Trust, to Thatcham Relief in Need. There are some major corporate donations as well, but also the general public, as I've alluded to a number of times already this morning, over £100,000 of individual donations from members of the general public in our area in North Hampshire and West Berkshire, which was amazing. We haven't seen that happen before. We really truly believe, and I truly believe, collaborative funding of projects and of charitable ventures and voluntary organisations going forward is very much going to be about, you know, it's going to be very much about collaboration going forward. For now, of course, the main focus at the Trust is COVID-19 related applications, but others are being received. And we will be considering them over the next couple of months, really looking at them on their own merits, but also on the deliverability, because obviously the Trust generally can't fund the whole funding required for a project. It requires other sources, funds from other sources too. And for some it's going to be very, very tricky in that regard. So that's why we saw this morning being very, very useful to give you some tips and help and guidance in how you can use all the resources the Trust can make available to hand to drive your fundraising as you go forward. So I talked before about the agenda, but just to run through the excellent panel we've got this morning. First, we're going to have speaking on grant funding, Jazz Galley from the Trust team. She'll be followed by Julian May, who's our new head of collaborative funding, and no great surprise, he'll be talking about collaborative funding this morning. Then we've got Misha Wallace from the Good Exchange, who'll be giving some top tips to everybody here on how to drive your fundraising through social media. And social media is so very important when you're fundraising. We've seen that certainly in the context of the appeal and various other things we've been doing over the last few months. We've also got, as I said earlier again, two excellent guest speakers this morning. I'm very grateful for both Aoife Madonna and also Samantha Harper for joining us. So Aoife from the Dingley's Promise and also Samantha from the West Berkshire MS Therapy Centre. So thank you to both of them for joining us this morning as guest speakers, because it really brings to life what people out there are doing. And then last but not least, Jill Owen will be introducing the Greenham Trust Double Match Day, which is being run at the end of July, which is a very exciting opportunity I'll let Jill talk about. We're going to use the chat feature on Zoom for questions, and I see there's a couple of messages coming in already, but the chat feature, so if you have a question you'd like to put to the panel, then please put that on the chat feature. I will be introducing the panel members as they speak, but also we're going to leave all the questions to the end, and I'll get through as many questions as I can. We've already got some coming by email. I'll get as many as we can as they come into the chat feature through Zoom. So again, if you'd like to pose a question, pose it at any time, and we'll deal with them at the end when the whole panel has spoken. I see, just looking at the screen, of my panel members, they're all looking incredibly nervous. Please, team, don't look so nervous. We've only got 143 people listening to you this morning. And I know you've got some great things to say to everybody and very useful information to give out to everybody. But we look forward to getting the questions later on. So if I can hand over now, please, to Jazz Galley from the Greenham Trust team to talk about local grant funding and Trust Top-Up. Jazz, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Jazz. I'm Grant Administrator at the Trust. My primary role is to manage some of the funding schemes but for the Trust, which I'll talk about in a minute. And apart from that, I also check and approve monitoring and evaluation reports for funds that have been successfully spent. So Greenham Trust, the charitable giving is distributed through various funding schemes. It's allocated as a grant or match funding. Previously known as reactive grants, our community grants funding scheme distributes grants twice a year, and that's in spring and autumn. Over £300,000 is split across the two rounds to award grants for various projects, both capital and revenue. If you'd like to apply for a community grant, you can see the deadlines which are published on our website regularly, and we also publish these deadlines on our social media platforms as well. So if you're not already following our pages, please do so. We also share facts and tips on our pages, so it's certainly worth keeping in touch through our social pages. In June last year, Greenham Trust took over the responsibility for the Peter Baker Foundation as well, which is a Newbury-based charitable trust. So we also administer the grants distributed for the Peter Baker Foundation alongside our community grant rounds. The Peter Baker Committee also meets twice a year, and they meet in January and August. However, the key difference is that they'll consider projects within a 20-mile radius of Marketplace in Newbury. So that can stretch as far as Basingstoke, whereas with the Trust, our area of operation is West Berkshire and the edges of North Hampshire. Both the Trust and Peter Baker funds can be distributed for, like I said earlier, capital and revenue projects. And revenue projects can include core costs, such as staffing costs, etc. Aside from our grant funding, Greenham Trust also offer match funding, commonly most popularly known as our Trust Top-Up scheme, which is offered on a rolling basis. So how that works is, as soon as your application becomes live on the Good Exchange, we will review it for Trust Top-Up, where you can receive up to £5,000 per project or up to £10,000 per organisation per financial year. So that means you can have more than one project live on the Good Exchange where you can receive Trust Top-Up for both of them. If you receive Trust Top-Up, your donations will be doubled as long as they meet the eligibility. Donations from individuals, companies and aggregated collections all qualify for match funding. However, if you receive a donation from a charitable trust, a registered charity, it does not qualify for match funding. All match funding offers are valid for 12 months from the date the project is first approved on the Good Exchange. At the end of the 12-month period, the match funding will stop. However, if your project is for an event on a specific date, the Trust Top-Up will stop after the date of the event. This is because Greenham Trust don't match in retrospect. To maximise your Trust Top-Up offer, my advice would be firstly to accept the offer as soon as possible so that you can start utilising it immediately. Also use social media to promote your project, which has received match funding. And if you are going to do this, let us know so that we can share your project on our pages as well. We do have quite a following, so we do often share the projects that we fund on our pages as well. The main thing I would say would be to drive your donors directly to the platform so that they can apply gift aid as well to their donations. Whilst the Trust Top-Up scheme is separate to the gift aid scheme, many of the principles that govern gift aid are equally applicable to Trust Top-Up. So, for example, the donations must be genuine donations rather than payments for goods or services, and the donation shouldn't secure a personal benefit. But the main difference is that to take advantage of gift aid, the donor must be a taxpayer, whereas for Trust Top Up, you don't have to be a taxpayer. You can still get Trust Top Up. Apart from matching through Trust Top Up, we also offer match funding from our local town council match funding schemes. So Greenham Trust have match funding agreements in place with local councils. Therefore, if you receive a grant, for example, from Hungerford Town Council, we will match that as well. So that means you could get a grant, you could get Trust Top Up and Town Council match funding to meet your fundraising requirement. Just a strange times, we have reviewed applications that we would have considered in our spring round. Obviously, they were delayed because of COVID. We are constantly reviewing them to make a decision at an appropriate time, and we will be in touch with further updates on that. Can everyone still hear me? I just got a message that my internet's unstable.
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay, great. If you're looking to apply for funding for a COVID-related project, we are still accepting applications via email and the Good Exchange. If you're looking for less than £1,000, you can email us your requirement. Alternatively, if you're looking for more, you can apply directly on the Good Exchange. And just to summarise, like I said earlier, you can benefit from a grant and match funding at the same time. So you can utilise platforms such as social media to drive donations, and that will really help you to reach your fundraising target. We're always here to help with any queries that you have, and always happy to support you to maximise your resources. So you can contact me on our main line or email me at jazz.galley@greenhamtrust.com. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jazz. That very clear explanation of what you're involved in grant funding. We'll come back to you at the end of the panel discussion. There have already been some questions for you, so we'll talk to you a bit later. As I said in my introduction, everybody, collaboration or collaborative funding I saw as being the way forward. And we recently appointed Julian May, who's my next colleague to speak, as head of collaborative funding here at the Trust. So Julian, if I can now pass on to you to talk about what you've been up to and how you see the future.
Chris, and good morning everyone. So I'm Julian, I'm Head of Collaborative Funding at Greenham Trust and the Good Exchange. And my role is very much to work with funders and source funders to work alongside Greenham Trust to support local charities and community organisations in West Berkshire and North Hampshire. And this morning I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about the Good Exchange and how it works, how it can help you, what is collaborative funding and how it's helping organisations in the community, and what Greenham Trust and the Good Exchange are going to be doing with collaborative funding over the next 12 months to help our local community. So the Good Exchange is a not-for-profit funding and fundraising web platform, which is wholly owned by the Trust and automatically matches charitable projects with eligible funding schemes using just one single online application. And we help charities and community organisations access grants and match funding from multiple funders, as well as Greenham Trust. But we're also a fundraising platform, and that means that you can access public and local company donations, and also people can arrange fundraising events and activities to support your charitable projects through the Good Exchange. And the Good Exchange accepts applications for capital, revenue and core funding projects. And we support projects right from a couple of £100 for camping equipment right up to large capital build projects and everything in between. But the average size of applications are for less than £10,000. It's easy to register on the Good Exchange. All you need to do is register your organisation details once and then create separate grant applications for projects or core funding. And we're going to provide help and links about how to register and apply on the closing slide and share with emails after the forum. And I'm also happy to answer questions about it. So what is the match funding that I referred to and just referred to? Well, it's really a turbo boost for charities and community organisations, and it incentivises you to attract new donations as well as grants which get matched through the platform to get your projects funded faster. So I'll give you an example. If someone makes a £10 donation to your fundraising page on the Good Exchange, it automatically gets matched with the funder's £10 and you receive £20 plus any associated gift aid. So £10 becomes £22.50, and we administer the gift aid on your behalf for free. But there's some things that you can do to make your match funding campaign even more effective. And particularly in the current climate, it's important that you're proactive with this. So one thing you can do is signpost your prospective donors and funders to your fundraising page by adding a link to your fundraising page on the Good Exchange, on your website or via social media or newsletters or PR or other marketing channels. I would also recommend that you regularly update your network and fundraising initiatives, and also about your latest fundraising target. I'd also advise you to try and engage your audience with stories about your beneficiaries, preferably using their voice if you can, and adding pictures and videos to help with engagement. I'll give you an example about how effective match funding has been on the Good Exchange. We helped a local homelessness prevention charity called Aspire Oxford raise over £40,000 in just 7 weeks from 7 different funders. As Chris has said, we really believe that collaborative funding is the future, particularly in these difficult times. And Greenham Trust works alongside a number of different funders, including charitable trusts, community foundations, local authorities, corporate social responsibility programmes, and housing associations such as Sovereign, which has already awarded £200,000 through the platform and is earmarked a further £150,000 in community grants. But as well as our registered funders, we have external funders that donate to local projects through the Good Exchange. And last year, over 40 of those funders donated over £200,000 to support local projects. I'll give you a couple of examples of case studies where collaborative funding has been successful. Just briefly reminding you about the coronavirus appeal that Greenham Trust has put through the Good Exchange, which Chris has mentioned, which raised over 250 donations worth £160,000 and over £150,000 in grants. And we've also helped Berkshire Youth with their West Berkshire Youth Hub triage service, a support service for young teenagers to avoid them getting into a crisis situation during the pandemic, which has raised £35,000 from 7 funders in just 7 weeks. The Good Exchange is working with Greenham Trust to continue this collaboration to help raise funds both with funders that we know and partners we know inside the district, but also funders on a regional and national level as well to support you and the local community. We want to tackle priority issues in the community like homelessness or poverty and deprivation, or to help young people into employment, or to help people with mental health issues in the community. And we very much welcome your feedback from the voluntary sector about how we should move forward with this and what are the priority issues. It's important to use the Good Exchange to access multiple funder grants with just one application, and the public can access local and public and company donations. And remember, you can manage your fundraising in just one place using the Good Exchange. The Good Exchange is also excellent value compared to platforms like Just Giving, which default to a 15% optional contribution and also charge 5% for administering gift aid, which we don't. Remember, more and more people are choosing to fundraise through the Good Exchange and also work in partnership with Greenham Trust. Don't forget, there are other brilliant services available, such as our Councils for Voluntary Service, Volunteer Centre West Berkshire, and Basingstoke Voluntary Action, which run a number of initiatives to support bid writing and training and support, and we'll share links at the end of the session. And I'm very happy to answer questions at the end of the session, or if you want to contact me afterwards, it's julian.may@thegoodexchange.com. Many thanks.
Thank you, Julian. Lots of questions coming in, everybody. We will get to them during the course, but at the end of the panel session this morning. 1 or 2 issues I gather with echo as well. I'm sorry, we can't seem to do anything about that at the moment, but we will see if we can improve the sound quality for people who are listening out there. So Julian touched upon social media. I certainly again talked about it in my introduction this morning. We believe at Greenham Trust and the Good Exchange that social media is so vitally important when you're trying to drive your fundraising campaigns. So I'd like to hand over now to Misha Wallace from the Good Exchange team to talk you through with her top tips on social media. Misha, over to you.
Hi everyone, nice to see you all today. Put some faces to the names on emails, that's quite nice. So I'm Misha and I'm the Client Support Manager for the Good Exchange. And many of us have probably spoken before when I've been helping you to get your registrations and your projects live on the platform, or to help you manage your projects and get the most out of the platform as you can. You've probably also joined myself and my colleague Marina Stedman on our webinars for social media that we've run over the past few years. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. It's using social media to drive your fundraising. So social media is a fantastic tool for charities to use, especially in the current age. Really, it acts as free marketing for your organisation. So it's providing you really with several platforms where you can share your activities, talk to people about what you're doing, and really target fundraisers and donors who can support what you're doing. So why is social media particularly important? Well, in West Berkshire alone, nearly 105,000 people are using social media right now, and nearly 44,000 in North Hampshire. And if you imagine that on average, really 2.5 hours of social media use per day per person, imagine that all of these people donated to your projects. So you want to try and reach them as much as you can. Now, during COVID-19, since that started in March, we have noticed, obviously, the public are using social media a lot more now. They're all working remotely. Charities are working remotely. And we have noticed that people driving their donations on social media are gaining more donations on their projects. So that evidence is really showing itself, particularly at the moment. So if you can maintain a presence for your organisation on, say, one or more social media channels, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, maybe starting with one or two, then you can access these people who are using social media every single day, reach a wider audience, and attract donors and fundraisers to support your activities. So 5 top tips I'm going to give you today for using social media. And the first one is, if you haven't already, set up 1 or maybe 2 platforms on social media for your organisation. That's the place to get started. Top tip 2, a bit of alliteration there. The most important one of all is to add content onto your pages as often as you possibly can. So what you should be really doing or trying to do is post about your fundraising projects, tell people about what you're doing and why, and encourage people to donate. So provide them with a link to your project. And if you have match funding, absolutely do tell people, because doubling of donations can act as a fantastic incentive for people to support you. And that really does work. So tell them you've got that available. Now, when you post and tweet, it's important to have something that draws the eye of donors. You want to bring them in to have a look at your content and eventually come through and donate. So adding an image is very useful for that. Do try to add an image to all of your posts and tweets if you possibly can. You can also instead add a video to your posts and tweets. Now, it's quite easy to create a short video on your mobile. You can even use something like Facebook Live, and actually personal stories are really, really engaging for people. So talk to people about your beneficiaries, or even better, have your beneficiaries involved in a video. So images are great on a post, but videos are better. Also, when you're posting, do try to include 1 or 2 hashtags, relevant ones. So at the moment it would be things like COVID-19 or hashtag coronavirus, or related to what it is you're fundraising for. It might be something like hashtag mental health. And using hashtags, only 1 or 2 is enough, can help people to find you on the social media platforms when they're searching as well. Now, also when you're posting, do try to mention other relevant organisations. Now, when you do that, if you add something like @The Good Exchange or @Greenham Trust, as Jazz was mentioning earlier on, if you mention another organisation, they will be notified that you've done that, and this will bring them through to read your post, to read your content, and they can start engaging with you on that as well. Now, it can be hard to find resource time to dedicate to adding content on social media on a daily basis, but what you can do instead is you can schedule tweets and posts to go out when you're not there. And to do this, you can use something like an online tool like Hootsuite, which is free to use. That helps you manage all of your posts and tweets, and you can schedule tweets. Or if you don't want to use a whole other tool yet, on Facebook you can actually schedule posts to go out anyway. So really what you're doing is you're choosing a time for those to go out, and it means that you're maintaining a presence on those pages even when you're not there. So that can be a really, really useful thing to do if you haven't got much time available. Now, top tip number 4 is visit and follow other organisations that are relevant to you and your activities. So if you're on Twitter, for example, have a look around, find other organisations that are relevant to you, follow them, and they tend to then follow you back. So what it's about really is just kind of building up that community on social media, building your audience, having people move around and having a look to see what you're doing, and then hopefully donating and supporting you as well. And finally, last top tip is to link your social media pages that you've created with your organisation profile on the Good Exchange. Now you can do this when you're logged in to your account, and that's under My Dashboard, Organisation, and scroll down to Add Social Media Platforms. Now, when you add a link to your pages, what then happens is that that link becomes available on your project page. So anyone visiting your project page can then click on that link as well and come through to have a look at your social media page. So it's all about moving people around, letting them read as much as possible about what you're doing, and really generating engagement. Now, using social media, we know, can seem a little bit daunting. There's lots of different platforms to choose from, but my advice would be to just pick one, maybe 2, and just have a go. And actually, it can be quite good fun posting and tweeting content about something you're really passionate about, really, and engaging with your supporters, and they really enjoy that as well. And particularly at the moment when everyone's online, it's good to just get that conversation started. And you're all doing some fantastic work, so why not shout out about it? That's what it's there for. So if you want some more help on using social media for your fundraising, we, as I mentioned before, we've run some webinars, and they're available for you on the Good Exchange website under resources. So you can work through those at your own pace, stopping and starting the video and having a look at the slides. Now we've got those from beginners all the way through to advanced, so you can start at the beginning if you need to, if you've never set up a page before, and those also cover some of the things I've mentioned today. So yeah, in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can always reach me on support@thegoodexchange.com. I'm here to help you with your social media bits if you need me, or just with using the Good Exchange generally. Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Misha, for your top tips on social media. There's a few questions come in, so we'll be talking again a bit later on that, because I know it's something that many haven't really embraced, and that there's a great opportunity, as we talked about, to really turbocharge your fundraising through social media. So thanks again. I'd like now to introduce our first guest speaker today. As I'm delighted we've got 2 guest speakers for you. The first one is Madonna of Dingley's Promise. So Aoife, over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. As Chris said, I'm Aoife McDonough, and I work for Dingley's Promise. I'm going to talk quite briefly about who Dingley's Promise are and what we do. I'm then going to talk about how we responded to COVID-19 and what it meant for us, and how funders like the Greenham Trust were key for us to deliver our response. So for those of you who don't know Dingley's Promise, we are a children's charity who work across Berkshire. We support children under the age of 5 with special educational needs and disabilities and their families at our 3 centres, and we have centres in Reading, Wokingham and Newbury in West Berkshire. Now, on the 18th of March, following government advice, like many other organisations, we had to shut the doors to our centres. And we very quickly had to shift our support and service to an online remote model. This was completely new to us, and as kind of Chris highlighted earlier, we very quickly became best friends with Zoom. So for us and for our children and our families, what this remote support program looked like was we were providing one-to-one support weekly for families via phone calls, emails, Zoom, and whatever medium worked for them. We were running virtual group sessions, again via Zoom, for children and their families with members of our team, so familiar faces for the children, and that was kind of leading story sessions, sing-alongs, kind of trying to mirror what would be happening on a normal day within a Dingley's Promise Centre. We shared virtual resources so for families to use at home with their children, as well as sending physical resources to children at home. We widened our family support programs so that our family support workers were not only supporting children and families who attend our centres, but that we were able to support any child with SEND and their family. And the final kind of element of our emergency response work was to send out a kind of, or offer a free inclusion training program. So we run a paid for accredited training for early year practitioners around inclusion, but we created a bite-sized version of that training, very aware that there were many people potentially on furlough or at home with more time on their hands to perhaps be able to take this time to do some training. Now, funders like the Greenham Trust were really quite key in helping us to be in a position to make that shift and make it quickly so that our children and our families had the support they needed, and there wasn't any gap in that provision. Greenham Trust supported 3 areas of our response work. The first was incredibly key. It was providing funding to set up our team to be able to work remotely. So a lot of our team are earlier practitioners who work within our centre, have never had to work from home for us, and they needed laptops or IT equipment to be able to log into those Zoom sessions, to be able to communicate with those families, to be able to send resources. We had to the Greenham Trust also helped fund our family support work in West Berkshire, and they also provided matched funding that we received from Newbury Town Council for additional cleaning equipment that we were going to require once we were reopening, which we did at the very beginning of June. We've been back in our centres for a month now with about 60% of our children coming in. We're still continuing our remote support programme remotely for those who aren't able to join us yet. And we're going to continue that programme over the summer. I think I've gone over my time, so I hope that's okay.
That's fine, Aoife. No, thank you very much for explaining all you've been doing at Dingley's Promise over the last few months. Don't worry at all about, we're good on time. Thank you. We really appreciate you.
My little alarm went off and I was panicking. Sorry.
Indeed, don't worry. We also have another guest speaker this morning, who's Samantha Harper from the West Berkshire MS Therapy Centre. So Samantha, let's hear from you, please, and what you've been up to at the MS Therapy Centre.
Oh, thank you, Chris, and good morning, everyone. I'm from the Berkshire MS Therapy Centre, and we support people with multiple sclerosis through specialist treatments and getting people together to support one another. Like probably everyone else, up until March, that was pretty much 100% face-to-face. And so overnight, we had to totally transform how we offered support, how we worked, while at the same time, we were facing, I think, about a 40% drop in our income this year. So really, really difficult time. We were incredibly fortunate to receive a grant from the Greenham Trust, which really helped. And we also maximised the match funding we had on offer. And it was, I mean, match funding is like catnip. It really is. I mean, we got more donations, we got higher donations, and the feedback was, well, if we've got match funding, well, I'm going to give more because you're going to be able to, do twice as much with it. And that works if it's £10, if it's £50, and people really wanted their money, especially now, to go further. So that's why they chose to donate this way. Because of that early support, it meant we didn't have to furlough our team, which has just transformed the support we have been able to provide. So, for example, if we look at our physiotherapy sessions, everyone who comes in for exercise with us, they work with one physiotherapist who gets to know them really, really well, gets to create a program for them which can work from home. And it means our team could phone, could email, all sorts of ways of making sure people are still exercising, making sure they're doing it safely, which also doubles up as a sort of befriending service as well. Just, how are you doing? You know, how are you coping during this time? Sorry, the postman's just come. And the feedback we've received from our members is actually it is keeping people active, and it's really helped their physical and their mental health doing so. I would like to say a huge thank you to anyone who's donated. It has made a huge, huge difference. And also to say to any organisation who's thinking of using the match funding or to apply for grants, for us, it was an absolute lifeline, a time when we really, really needed support, and I really hope it's as beneficial for you too. So that's me, thank you.
Thank you very much, Samantha. I really hope you haven't missed your post this morning by not answering your door. I'd hate to think that would have happened to you.
Once been and done that, that's fine now.
Great, thank you again very much for your insight into what you've been doing at West Berkshire MS Therapy Centre. I also said we had some exciting news on a particular Greenham Trust initiative, and last but not least, I'd like to introduce Jill Owen to talk about what we're doing at the Trust and this initiative that's being run at the end of July. Over to you, Jill.
Thanks, Chris. So good morning, everybody. I'm Jill Owen and I'm the Grants Manager for Greenham Trust. And today I'm going to talk to you about Greenham Trust Double Match Day, which is a fantastic fundraising opportunity where you can raise up to £15,000 in one day. So on Friday the 24th of July, Greenham Trust is offering £100,000 in double match funding on 10 charitable projects on the Good Exchange to help local charitable organisations boost their fundraising during the COVID-19 pandemic. To take part, you'll need a live project on the Good Exchange by Monday the 13th of July, requiring a minimum of £15,000 in funding. This can be a new project or an existing project for any charitable purpose, such as core costs, building refurbishment or new equipment. Each project will be offered up to £5,000 in trust top-up, subject to our normal terms and conditions. And then on Friday the 24th of July, we will be offering an additional £5,000 of match funding on each project, meaning that for every £1 donated, Greenham Trust will award £2. To make the most of this opportunity, you'll need to promote your project to your friends, family and the public, encouraging them to engage in fundraising activities or make a donation. To qualify for the double match funding, donations must be made online via the Good Exchange between midnight on Thursday the 23rd of July and midnight on Friday the 24th of July. Greenham Trust will support you in promoting your projects via social media, the local media and through Kennet Radio. For the shortlisted applicants, we're also offering a webinar on Friday the 17th of July to give further suggestions on how you might maximise your fundraising. So for the full terms and conditions and details of how to apply, these are on our website on greenhamtrust.com/double, or you can drop us an email at events@greenhamtrust.com and I'll send you the link. So we think this is a great opportunity to help you raise £15,000 in one day. So why not start planning your project now? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jill. So a very exciting day towards the end of July there, which will be promoted, of course, by the Trust. And also, many of you will know I actually present a breakfast show on Kennet Radio on a Friday morning. So that Friday morning, I'll be profiling all 10 of the organisations that are involved in the double match funding day. So there's an opportunity to talk live on the radio, and Kennet Radio will be covering that during the course of that day as well to really help drive giving onto the platform for your individual charities. So a great initiative there. It's very much a test for us as a trial. As of course we try new and innovative things. We do pitch the panel. Many of you will have been involved in that. We did the golden ticket and the silver ticket last year, which was very successful. So this is something else we're trialing as to whether if it works well on that Friday, then we might well indeed, do other similar days during the course of the year. So thanks again to all the speakers this morning. Fantastic insight into everything that we'd said we'd cover. I believe we have covered. I'd now like to turn it over to questions. I've got a number of questions that people have seen have come in through chat, so we'll try and go through them in order. Also, Rob, I've had a request from Gary Paulsen at the Volunteer Centre West Berkshire who'd like to say a few words for a couple of minutes. So while I get into the first questions, if you could be ready to unmute Gary. I can't see him on my screen. We've got 6 pages of images on the screen, so I can't see Gary. We'll see him when he starts to talk. But Rob, at some point, I'll ask you to unmute Gary Paulsen for us, please, from the Volunteer Centre West Berkshire. The first question is an anonymous one, and it's for Julian. Julian, what's your advice on where to start for someone new to fundraising?
Yes, Chris. Well, as I said, the Good Exchange is a relatively simple process to register online. It depends what kind of project you've got. If you've got a kind of revenue or a small capital project, it's a simple process to register the organisation details through the Good Exchange and then create and submit an application. And we can help you with that process. And we can help you to source different sources of funding as well. So remember, when you're making an application on the Good Exchange, you're making a single application, which is accessing multiple funders. You're not making separate grant applications. And that obviously massively cuts down the time that you're taking in duplicating effort in creating multiple grant applications. So my first bit of advice would be to have a think about how you present your application, very clear narrative, be very clear about your project breakdown as well. So, and evidence your cost breakdown to sort of add a little bit about your reserves. But in that first application description, make sure you describe clearly what your organisation does and who's going to benefit, how many people, and how you're going to measure the impact of your project.
Good sound advice there. Thank you very much, Julian. On to questions that have come via live chat. So the first one, Jill, I'm going to direct it to you, if I may. It's from Fleur Howells. We've already been benefiting from funding from Greenham Trust. Thanks. Our project is nearing completion. It's not related to COVID-19. And I'm wondering if the Trust will be able to continue supporting us or whether funds will be prioritised elsewhere. It's a capital project to extend our community hall to improve access. Inevitably, perhaps there have been a small increase in project costs as the building work got underway, and we have requested some additional funding, hoping you can continue to support us so we can finish.
Right, okay, so it's non-COVID related. So non-COVID related projects are still being channeled for the community grants distribution scheme, which at the moment we're currently reviewing the deadlines. We've got one coming up in November. And we've got some that have been held over from the spring, which are subject to review. But so, yes, we will still be considering those projects. I think just be mindful that, as ever, there are a lot of requests out there for funding.
Great. Thank you, Jill. And Flo, if you need a more detailed answer to that question, of course, do contact the team post this session. My next question is from Colin Mansell, and I'll direct this to Jazz, if I may, Jazz. To get a local authority grant as well as a Greenham Trust match funding grant, do we go to the local authority first or through Greenham Trust?
Oh, there you go. Sorry, I couldn't unmute then for a second.
Okay.
Sorry, could you ask the question again, please? Sorry.
Yes, of course. So it's from Colin Mansell. To get a local authority grant as well as a Greenham Trust match funding grant, do we need to go to the local authority first or through Greenham Trust?
So it depends really. So if your application is already on the Good Exchange and you're already fundraising, if you receive a grant from the local authority, so from the local town council, we will automatically match it. The town council are responsible for letting us know which grants they've distributed so that we can match them. Some organisations do have a relationship with the local town council, so they do contact them as well as just to sort of flag their project up and say, you know, we've got our project, please could you consider us for a grant. They do have that kind of relationship with them. You can contact them if you want to in addition. But if you do receive a town council grant, we will automatically match it because the town councils will let us know to do that.
Great. Thank you, Jazz, for answering that so clearly. Next question is from George Greenham. When a donation is made, what is the matched part paid? When is the matched part paid into the recipient's account? Jazz, I think that's one for you as well, isn't it? So when a donation is made, when is the matched part paid into the recipient's account?
Okay, so how it works is when you receive a donation, and as long as you've accepted your offer and the offer is live and the donation has been matched, the donation and the matched funding as a lump sum will be paid into your account mid-month, the following month of receiving it. Okay, so I'll explain that a little bit better. So if you receive a donation in January and it gets matched in January, you'll get paid that as a lump sum by mid-Feb. Okay, if, for example, you haven't accepted your offer, you may get paid the donation, but you won't get paid the match funding part. So you'll need to make sure that your funding offer is confirmed, i.e. you have signed the terms and conditions, it's all live on your project. If everything's all okay, then you will get paid the donation and the match funding as a lump sum the following month.
Great, thank you, Jazz. Now moving on to Glyn Thomas, and this is a question about social media. So Misha, over to you on this one. I keep on hearing about the benefits of using social media. And like the rest of my family, I am not keen on social media. I don't do Facebook, for example. Am I putting our parish council project at risk? Have I no alternative but to come out of the dark ages for the sake of the project? That's very open and honest of you.
It is. I think it is a useful thing to do. Really, you don't have to be using it actively yourself personally. Now, the likes of Facebook, you do have to have a personal page in place first before you can set up a company page. But Twitter, you don't. So if you started on, say, Twitter, started setting up a company page, it's not related to you individually, it's just your company, so you can completely take your time setting it up and adding bits each day. What I would suggest is you have a look at our Introduction to Facebook and Twitter webinar on the Good Exchange resources page. Now that starts from absolute scratch, so it's from even just setting up a login and a password, all the way through to just making a little picture on the page, and then all the way through to adding content and using it actively. So try not to let it phase you, as it is something you can take your time with. As I say, you don't have to use it personally, you don't have it linked to your personal stuff and people can't see it. So it is worth doing. I think because you can reach such a wide audience, I mean, you're talking about the world here on social media, it's definitely worth giving it a go if you can. But we can help you.
Thank you indeed. I hope that's helped you and tempted you onto social media, Glyn. The next question from Julian Swift-Tuck, and this was partly answered by you actually just immediately after Julian raised it, but there's a couple of things that he mentioned. What is your view of automated social media posting platforms like Hootsuite, Buffer, or Hootsuite or Buffer?
Yep. Well, we actually use
you talked about Hootsuite.
Yeah, we use it now. Hootsuite's a good one. So just to go over again what that is, it's a one site, one platform, one tool online where you can manage several social media platforms. So say you have a Facebook page for your organisation and you also have a Twitter page for your organisation, you can manage those all on Hootsuite together. So what they do is they give you streams showing all of your tweets that are coming in from other people, the ones that you're sending out, and you're managing it on one dashboard together. So what it saves you doing is if you've got multiple pages logging in and out of each one, you're doing it all in one place. We find it very, very useful. There's little quirks with it that could be a little bit better, but it also has very nice reporting, which is worth looking at. So it can show you how much your audience has increased, for example, over the month, which particular tweets are doing well. And yes, Facebook and Twitter have their own ones of that, but the reporting on Hootsuite's a little more advanced. But we think it's fantastic if you've got multiple channels. If you've only got one, there's not really as much of a need.
Indeed, yeah, it's good advice, because obviously we're quite big users of the Hootsuite, aren't we, ourselves? The next question I've got here is from Lydia Parker-Schwartz, and she says here, and I'd like to direct this to you, Julian, if I may. Lydia, sorry, it's Linda, sorry, Linda Parker Swartz. I am new to fundraising and have a large capital project extending our village hall. How can I start using the Good Exchange?
Well, Linda, I don't know if you're already registered on the Good Exchange, but the first thing you would need to do would be to register your organisation details on the platform, who you are and your governance information. And then you would need to think about creating an application. And there's guides that we'll send you links to at the end to walk you through how to register your organisation and also how to make an application. Very happy to have a discussion with you about, where you're at with your fundraising in terms of your project and what you still need to raise and the best approach to do that. As I said in my session, there are a number of funders who fund locally that may well be interested in your project and may well match with your project because they fund in your area. So the best thing to do is have a look at the guide about how to register and how to make an application. If you have any questions, you're very welcome to email me.
And just on that as well, if I can, to get started on the Good Exchange, you go to the website and it's what we do, and then for applicant organisations, this is if you're starting from scratch. So a 3-step process to create your login, register your organisation, and then add your fundraising project. And there's also a video in the resources section called How to Register on the Good Exchange, and that will take you through from A to Z on setting up. So that can be quite helpful.
Great, good supplementary information there, Misha. So I'm just going through the questions as they've come in chronologically, actually. So Rob, if we could please unmute Gary Paulsen. I say I can't see him on my screen because we've got 6 whole screens here. But if you could unmute Gary, because he'd like to say a couple of minutes worth of words.
Hey. Can you hear me, Chris? Am I on?
We can hear you. Yeah,
okay.
We can hear you. Thanks, Gary.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much, Chris, and the team for putting this on. Very useful, very upbeat. I think we're very fortunate to have Greenham Common Trust. This is another really useful way to communicate what we're all up to. Thanks very much to Julian and Chris, who alluded to the Volunteer Centre at the start of the session. Much appreciated. Just really wanted to take a very short opportunity to say the Volunteer Centre, like many other organisations, it has been entirely focused on COVID-19 responses. However, our role is chiefly to support the voluntary and community sector in other ways that aren't funding. Although we do give advice about funding, and my colleague Sarah, who's participating in this Zoom this morning, is here at the Volunteer Centre to give advice and guidance to organisations. And whilst we are always incredibly grateful for the huge amount of funding that Greenham Trust provides a portal for, there are other funding bodies, as they know, and therefore we have access to those. So I'm going to really keep it very short and just say that for those of you that aren't aware, we have a weekly voluntary sector bulletin that goes out, and some of you may receive it, but if you don't, please ask my colleague Laura. Laura, I'm going to post her email address very shortly on the message bulletin board, and say, Laura, can we go onto your voluntary sector bulletin board, because you'll get lots of news and updates, funding streams, training offers, advice and guidance, just good news items that you may want to put out there. And we'd be really pleased to have you on the weekly bulletin. It currently goes to about 600 people in West Berkshire, so it would be great if we could add another 100 to that this morning. So I just want to say thanks again to Chris and Julian and Jill and the entire team at Greenham Trust for putting us on. Really useful forum. And I'm just going to post Laura's email address and just send her a short email saying, Laura, can we be added to your bulletin? So thanks very much.
Great, that's very kind. Thank you very much, Gary. Now back over to questions. We are at 11:01, so I realise we've gone a little over time. Still got 129 people online. So I think what I'll do, on the basis that I hope many of you were able to stick around with us, we will carry on with the questions because I'd like to get through them. I've got another 18 new messages coming in. So the next one is from Tess Eagles. I would like to learn more about being able to thank our donors on the Good Exchange projects. I'm trying to build up our donor engagement. Perhaps, Misha, if I could direct that one to you.
Yeah, so at the moment, the only way really to thank your donors on the Good Exchange is to go onto your project via your dashboard. And there's an option if you click on Edit Public Page to add a comment, and what you can then do is add a little comment that will show up in the donations area under latest updates on your project page. Now, what we're looking at doing going forward is, we know charities really do want to thank their donors and get engaged with them. We're looking at allowing donors to opt in to receiving communications from the charities they're supporting. And from there, we want to give a report to charities available on the dashboard with all the contact details of all the donors who've opted in. But that work's something that's underway at the moment. So once that's in place, you will have the option of contacting all opted in donors.
Great, that's very kind. Thank you for that, Misha. The next one is Margot Payne. And again, I think for you, Misha, I think you might be able to answer this. Can I ask, Misha, how much does Hootsuite cost?
Yeah, having a little look at this, actually spotted your question, Margot. Hootsuite at the moment, so there's a 3-month free trial for Hootsuite, first of all, so that's free for them to try it out to see if you like it. There's various plans that they have, and the plans start at £25 per month. Now that's enough really, because it allows you up to 10 different pages to manage, but it only allows you one user on there to do it, but there is unlimited scheduling, so you can schedule as many posts as you like, and then it goes up to £99. But the one thing to keep in mind is there actually is a 50% discount for not-for-profits, so worth looking into that. We do have on our website a webinar purely on Hootsuite and setting that up and using it, and we do cover the link, I believe, to receive that 50% discount. I think there's more information there, so definitely look into that, or on Hootsuite itself, definitely go for that 50% off. Just as a kind of side thing to that, I neglected to mention, silly, Canva, which is an excellent tool that you can use to create images. Now, that's really, really useful if you want to create a profile image for your Facebook page, or for your post, or even on your website, your Good Exchange page. Now, Canva is excellent. It's completely free to use, and you can actually, I think, as a not-for-profit, receive further images. So what you do is you pick lots of images, and then you can create something yourself with lots of different pictures, your logos, and really it's so easy to use and free. It's worth doing. You can create some fantastic things there. So Canva, have a look at that as well.
Yeah, indeed, Canva is indeed very good. Thank you, Misha. Next question I've got here in order is from Ed Cooper. Will Greenham Trust Good Exchange match fund a Kickstarter style crowd fundraise? So that is a charity starting up. Donate £100 now to get us going, which will be matched by the trust. And then when we are established in year 2, we'll carry out or complete a service for you. I think I'll try and answer that one, Ed. It would depend very much on the organisation you were looking to start up. I think I might have an idea of what it is in this instance. I think this is probably best a question we're best dealing with offline. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, which is chris@greenhamtrust.com, I think you already know that. But certainly I think it's providing its charitable purpose, and it's something that's worthy of support, then we would certainly look at it, although that's something quite new for the Good Exchange to do as a sort of kick-started crowd fund. But the Good Exchange has the ability to do that. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down. I've got quite a few messages now, so bear with me. We're still at 107 people, so I'll just try and get through these questions. Right, next one's from Helen Milroy. During the Rosemary Appeal, donors who didn't have the ability to donate online found the system of donating confusing, and we received many donations in our office and the Good Exchange office without the necessary completed Good Exchange form. Isn't there a better way to encourage non-computer users to donate? Julian, would you like to pick that one up?
I can. I can.
I mean, unless you want to, Misha.
I'm happy to, if you're all right, Julian.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm not particularly keen, Julian.
I'm happy.
So basically, the Good Exchange primarily being an online fundraising platform, the best way for people to donate is always online. But we are aware that there's other donors who don't particularly use websites or have online access at all. So they prefer to donate via backs or via cheques, and for that we do require a form to be completed by the donor to confirm their donation, and that forms part of our audit trail for that donation as well. So yes, you're absolutely right. Sometimes what we find is that a backs amount will come through without the form, or the cheque will come through without the form, or vice versa, and that can be a bit tricky for some donors. I think the main thing is to get the message out to your donors on how to donate as much as you possibly can. Now, obviously, if you have gifted available on your projects, on the form there is the option for the donor to add the gifted. So for the people who want to add gifted, we would absolutely need the form from them, because that confirms that for us as well. But if you get in a whole bunch of donations and they're not adding gifted to the cheques, I would advise that they then pay through the funds to you instead, and then that you collate them and add them through as a donation onto your project page. Yes, you wouldn't be able to have the gifted in that scenario, but that's another option for you to collate donations together.
The other thing, just quickly on that, is a quick reminder that if you put the information about how to donate through the Good Exchange on your website, it makes it much clearer. So signposting people to the fundraising page, but also describing how to donate would be good advice too. And I think we were quite successful, weren't we, with raising money for the Rosemary appeal to get funding.
Indeed. Thank you, Julian. And thank you, Misha, on that one. The next question from Peter Walsh. Can we add a new item for the double match funding day, or is it just existing items? That's for Jill, please.
Absolutely, yes. Please add a new, well, when you say add a new item, I presume you mean add a new project. So yes, we welcome new projects as well as existing projects.
Yeah, I think it might mean just saying it's a new item. It might mean adding a new item to an existing project rather than a new project, mightn't it?
Okay, so if it's to add a new item to an existing project to, I guess, increase the amount of fundraising or the amount of funds required for that project, we would probably review it on a case-by-case basis. It would depend perhaps how many funds have already been raised for that project. So that might be something that you just email us at events@greenhamtrust.com, and we'd have a look at it and give it full consideration. But in theory, it's quite likely. So,
okay, yeah. Thank you, Jill. There was another question from Tess Eagles, which was to Misha. I'm interested that you've not mentioned LinkedIn. Do you not rate it as a social media tool? I think Marina, one of our colleagues, has responded on the chat, but you might want to say a few words about your views on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I only mentioned a few today. There's so many different platforms, really. And really our advice, if you haven't started before, is to start with two of the most popular, which are Facebook and Twitter. And that's why I've primarily mentioned those today. LinkedIn is another option. It's more focused around your business. You can have an organisation page on there. And we absolutely do have one on there too. So you can still absolutely use that for social media. But I think if you've never done it before, in terms of audience and in terms of being able to add content and images and things, and the reach that you'll get in the particular people that you'll reach rather than businesses mainly alone, then I would definitely start with Facebook or Twitter first.
Great, thank you, Misha. That's good advice. Actually, I agree with that. So next question for Jill, please. Karina Woodall, if you obtain donations through gift boxes, is this income that can be matched?
Through Trust Top-Up scheme, yes, you can pay it in as a manual donation. You need to get a manual donation form, pay it in, and say that it's money come from collections, aggregated collections.
Okay, thanks, Jill. I hope that's answered the question. Yeah. Another question from Jeanette here. One of our donors did not want to create an account on the Good Exchange. Is there a way to donate without this? Misha, could you answer that for me, please?
Absolutely, yep. If they don't want to create an account, they can instead donate via a BACS transfer or a cheque. And to do this, they would need to also complete a manual donation form, and those are available in the FAQ section of the website, the help and support page. Or you can always email me on support@thegoodexchange.com, and I can send you a copy of that through to pass to your donors.
Great, thank you. That now brings us to the end of the questions. I see we've lost quite a lot of people, so I'd like to wrap up, if I may. Firstly, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody in the Greenham Trust and the Good Exchange team that's got involved this morning, but particularly to our guest speakers. Really appreciated to both Aoife, Madonna from Dingley's Promise and Samantha Harper from the West Berkshire MS Therapy Centre. Delighted you could join us this morning, but again to all of you. You know, we're well into an hour now. We've still got 90 people online engaged with us. And, you know, this again, right, like our double match funding day, is a test. You know, if these work, you know, I think we're going to be working in the virtual world for quite some time to come. So do feedback on what you thought was good and perhaps not so good on this morning's forum, because we can have others and engage on particular topics. But I think, to me, the key messages that came across from our speakers this morning were really, a strong one was the social media. Remember the 5 tips that Misha gave us, which are so important, I think, in driving fundraising, but also using the Good Exchange as your local platform that we set up, we've invested in as a trust. It's not for profit. It compares very well to other platforms. It's free of fee for COVID-related applications, of course, but our fees are significantly less than other organisations, and it is not for profit. And we still see a lot of local charities using other platforms, which cost in many cases a lot more as well. And do please use Trust Top Up. Every year we're quite astounded, really, that lots of organisations are awarded Trust Top and don't utilise the full £5,000 amount. It's such an easy way to fundraise, really, if your project's eligible, to drive £1 for every pound up to £5,000. And of course, we've got the match funding day coming up on Friday, the 24th of July. So I hope many of you will engage in that, and there'll be 10 projects, of course, that go forward. They'll be profiled in the lead up to that, and certainly on the day as well. I think what I'd like to finish off is saying is that if there are any questions you've thought about, or sadly for whatever reason, because there's 22 now messages in chat, I think they're all thank you messages. Anything I haven't covered off, or you need to cover in more detail, then please do send us an email. The email for this event is events@greenhamtrust.com. So that's events@greenhamtrust.com. If you'd like to send them through to us, we will make sure that they go to the relevant member of the team, who will give you an answer to the best of their ability. So thanks again for joining us this morning. It's been fantastic to see so many of you online, and the fact we've all adopted this technology and the way of doing it. And hopefully not before long we will be able to meet in the real environment. But for the time being, as I said, we are happy to have similar events. So thank you once again to everybody this morning, and thanks again for all our speakers. If I could just say, please, for all the speakers this morning, if you could just hang about, just stay on Zoom for me just for a few minutes after everybody's departed this morning. And it remains me to say thanks again, guys, and goodbye.